All right, hello and welcome to Engineering Ethics at NJIT. I'm your instructor, Daniel Estrada, and this is the Syllabus Policies video for the course. In this video, I will be going over the syllabus policies about your assignment structure, your grading, the grading policy, the presentations, and all the assignments you'll be doing for the class, all the policies. This is just going to give you a overview, a summary, highlighting the important things that you need to know to get started. All of my policies are described in full detail in the course syllabus. It's a very long document, but it has all the information that you need. Any questions that you have will be answered there. This video is just supposed to be a big picture overview, very quick, to get you into the assignment structure and so you know what you're doing. So let's go ahead and get started. There are 15 weeks in the semester, and there will be one lesson every week. The lessons, for the most part, are exactly identical every week, so there's a sort of standard structure that you're going to be getting into the rhythm of every week. There's a few exceptions to this structure. Most of the lessons, though, the sort of standard lesson consists of a lecture and a set of slides from me, along with a bunch of readings, sometimes a few videos and other lesson material, images, graphs, other documents. The readings might sometimes be photocopies from the textbook, Ethics and Engineering, but they might also be other articles and papers and so on that I've compiled for the course. This is our official textbook, Ethics and Engineering, 4th edition by Martin and Schetzinger. I've been using this text since I began teaching this class. The 4th edition is where the questions and page numbers and so on will come from. If you don't have the 4th edition, then the page numbers will be different. It used to be the case that I required students to buy this text, and I still encourage students to buy this text. There's a lot of information and assignments and resources in the text that you might find helpful. However, since the start of the COVID pandemic and working from home, the librarians at NJIT have photocopied the textbook, at least the relevant portions of the textbook that we use in class. So you should be able to find those portions of the textbook on the Canvas website. So you do not need to buy the textbook. Again, if you want to buy the textbook, there's also links to the Amazon page where you can buy this textbook. If this is the sort of thing that you think will be an interesting sort of reference on your bookshelf, please buy it. It's not that expensive, and you might find it helpful. But all of the readings and assignments that you will be doing in class, you will be able to find those on Canvas without buying any books. So again, your weekly requirement for these lessons is to go through the lecture and the slides, sort of listen to my overview of the lesson material, and then dive yourself into the readings, the videos, and other material that's on Canvas. From these readings and videos and from the lectures, you are asked to put together a forum post in the discussion forum on Canvas, and to write 2 replies to your peers. So this is the weekly assignment, a post and 2 replies. Every lesson is more or less the same with these posts and replies. There are no, and I'll say more detail about the assignments when I get there. After your replies are due, I'm also asking you submit a plagiarism check. So your posts and replies go into this discussion forum on Canvas, but then I also want you to put them in a Word document and then submit them when you submit your replies to the plagiarism detection software. And then finally, there are a couple of lessons where we're not doing the same lesson structure, assignment structure. So for 3 of the lessons, and these are 3 lessons of your choosing, so on topics that you find interesting, I'm asking that you write extended posts, and I'll say a little bit more about what those extended posts are. It's basically just a longer writing assignment, but also more research and more attention to the writing process. You can do those for any 3 posts of your choosing, except for the research project weeks, and lesson 7 is also not and I'll say more about that in just a second. There will also be an independent research project where you are going to be asked to do library research to investigate a case study, a real historical case of your own choosing, hopefully something that's relevant to your interests and to your career trajectory. This is a research project that's done on lessons 10 and 11. It's only one case study. In lesson 10, you'll be doing some background research, and in lesson 11, you'll be giving an ethical analysis, but it's on the same case. I'll say a little bit more about that in just a second. Over the semester, you're also asked to give 2 presentations. One of the presentations will be on one of the regular content lessons, and I'm asking you to give your own presentation on the material from that lesson. The second presentation will be on your research project. So just sort of going over the research project that you've chosen, some of the details, and ethical analysis that you found interesting. The lesson presentation should be about 10 to 15 minutes, and the research project presentation should be about 5 minutes. Research project presentation will be a little bit shorter, but you're asked to do both of these presentations over the course of the semester. You can record those presentations, or you can present them at one of the live class sessions, and I'll talk about that in a bit also. Finally, the last special assignment, and this is for the final lesson in the course, lesson 15, is an ethics report. So for lesson 15, I'm not giving you any new case studies or new readings to do. Instead, I'm asking that you compile your best writings from the semester. So your 3 extended posts and your research project, and any other writing assignments that you think are demonstrate the effort and that you put into the semester, demonstrate some of the effort that you put into your writing and research. So I want you to compile all those and put them into an ethics report, and then give that ethics report a little bit of an introduction where you talk a little bit more about what you learned this semester. I just realized my face is covering the ethics book. That's okay. So every week, posts and replies, a research project in lessons 10 and 11, 3 extended posts at some point over the semester, these 2 presentations, and then your ethics report in the final week. I am estimating that this will take at least 5 hours of work per week per lesson in order to complete the material. That's 5 hours of watching the lectures and reading the material, and then writing up your posts and replies to other students. So make sure that you're putting 5 hours a week aside for this class. Less than 5 hours a week will probably not be enough time to give the material its due. Okay, so now just some more details about these assignments. So first, about your discussion forum posts. So remember, you have posts and replies. Every week, you should be writing a 350-word essay as your post. I also accept video essays. If you want to, instead of writing out a written essay, you can also record 4 minutes of an audio essay. Either just record the audio, or you can do a little video slideshow if you like. This is your weekly writing assignment. 350 words, or about 4 minutes of video or audio. Your writing assignment will not have specific prompts, although in some of the lessons I might raise certain questions that you are free to answer or to ignore. Your assignment is really to write about any issue that interests you in that lesson, any issue that relates to the lesson themes and engages the readings and lecture material. If you demonstrate that you're engaged with the lesson themes and that you're engaged with the readings and lesson material, then you will do fine on these assignments. And that you meet the minimum word count, then you will do fine on these assignments. During normal semesters, your weekly posts are due on Friday night, so 11:59 on Friday night. This changes in summer and winter courses, but during a normal semester, your weekly posts are due on Friday night at midnight, and they're worth 30 points per lesson. In addition to the posts, you should also do 2 replies for that lesson to other students' posts in the discussion forum. Your replies should be about 150 words, and these should be written out, no audio essays for the replies. But 150 words, it's about a paragraph long, that engage your peers in class on the material that they've discussed on their writing and presentations. You can reply to other students who have replied to your posts, but remember, the point of these assignments is to engage the views of others, so don't abuse that. During a normal semester, your replies are due on the Tuesday following the post. So if the post is due on Friday, then the following lesson 2 post is due on Friday, say, then the following Tuesday after the post. It's due at midnight. And there's a full schedule on Canvas where you can see the details of all the assignments. Each of your replies is worth 10 points, and together that's worth 20 points. So your weekly discussion forum assignments are worth 50 points total. Plagiarism has historically been a real problem for this class, so I do extensive plagiarism checks, and there will be an additional video on Canvas where I go over the plagiarism policy in a little bit more detail than I'll go through here. But what I'm asking is that you post your post and replies get posted into the Canvas discussion forum, and then you copy your post and replies into a Word document, .doc or .docx. And submit that file to the plagiarism check that's also on Canvas. It needs to be a .doc or .docx. These are Word document files. Don't submit PDFs or .notes or .pages files. Mac users sometimes submit .pages files, and sometimes people submit PDFs, but Plagiarism Check won't look inside those documents for your work, so it's important that you get Word document files, which you can also get through Google Docs. You will also get the plagiarism report back, so you can see what it's detecting or not. But you need to put your full your full post and replies into this plagiarism check document. Make sure that you're only including your posts and replies. Do not include the replies or posts of other students in class. They will submit their own plagiarism report. Your job is to submit your material to the plagiarism detection report. And these will be due on Tuesday with your replies. So do the same day as your replies. So for lesson 2, you submit the post on Friday. The following Tuesday, you submit your replies. And then by the end of that day at midnight, submit both of those things in a Word document to the plagiarism detection on Canvas. If you don't submit your post and replies to the plagiarism detection, you don't get credit on the assignment. But you need to submit it to both the discussion forum and the plagiarism check. So if you only submit it to the plagiarism check, you also won't get credit on the assignment. So first submit to the discussion forum, then after the replies, submit everything to the plagiarism check. So you've submitted it to 2 places. I put the grades on the discussion forum, but if I don't get a plagiarism check document, then I put a 0 on the discussion forum. There are due dates for the discussion forum assignments, but there's no hard due date for the plagiarism check. If you forget to turn in the plagiarism check, just get it in. As long as your actual assignments are turned in on time, then you will get full credit. You won't be penalized for a late plagiarism check. Okay, so I mentioned this earlier. Your writing assignments are open-ended. There's no specific writing prompts. I will sometimes offer some questions or a little bit of direction and orientation if you're struggling to find something to write about. But in general, you have freedom to write about whatever you want. Anything that interests you, that that you think will be relevant to your career, to your field. Anything that you have the motivation to write 350 words on a weekly basis about. So write about whatever. Specifically, look for things that you think will be relevant to your career. If there's something in the readings that reflects maybe a job that you want or a job that you think that you're aiming for, or just a situation that you might find yourself in, you might write to discuss the situation and talk about how you might have made a decision in that situation, or what you would have done differently than the people in the case that we're considering. Right, so one way of filling out these writing assignments is imagine yourself in these situations or in these cases, and then what would you do or what would you say? Another thing is just if there's some issue in the readings and the writings, maybe something that's related to the themes or maybe something that's a bit tangential but you think deserves more discussion and more attention in class, then write out your thoughts. Pick something that you think deserves elaboration and then elaborate on it. Can you clearly state the issue in a way that will help the other students in class appreciate your perspective, that will help other people in class appreciate how the issues that you're considering are relevant to our general discussions. Right, so dive into an issue and elaborate on it. Another thing you might do is consider some of the ethical theories that we've presented in class and how they might apply to some of the cases and situations and issues that we've talked about. So we will, over the course of the semester, introduce a few different ethical theories, and one way of completing the writing assignments is just apply these ethical theories to some of the cases that we're covering. This might be hard for some of the first couple of lessons when we haven't introduced the theories, but they come pretty quickly. So that's another option. Here's another option. Do more research. If there's some topic that comes up in the lessons and reading material that we sort of just glancingly touch on, but you think is interesting and deserves more discussion, then bring some more of that discussion into the discussion forum. Do some research, share some links, and help inform your peers about the things that interest you. Share your findings with the class. And finally, this is definitely an appropriate place to talk about your own personal views. If you have personal experience with some of the issues that we're going to be talking about, perhaps you've been at a job site where some of the ethical challenges that we're talking about have come up, and then you might talk about what you did in those situations. Maybe you have a background in a research background or an educational background where you've studied some of the things we're talking about, or you've looked at some of the case studies. Maybe you have a cultural background or some a tradition or religious views that you think might help give some insight and perspective on some of the cases that we've been talking about. Please share your personal experiences, share the knowledge that you alone can bring to our discussions. The goal of the class is for you to reflect and sort of reflect on your personal values and how they intersect with some of the public issues that we're discussing. So it's definitely appropriate to talk in the first person, to talk about your own views and values. So these are just some hints for things to write about. There might be other things that suggest themselves to you. And again, in some of the lessons, there will be explicit prompts that you might choose to write about. There will never be a case where I'm assigning you that you must write about something or other, except lesson 7 when we go over some very specific case studies in the NSPE Board of Ethical Review archives. But apart from lesson 7 Board of Ethical Review archive work, you're basically free to write about any topic that you think is relevant to the ethical themes, will engage those themes in the discussion forum, and will help prompt some discussion among your peers. Okay, so that's it's a little abstract, and I know some students struggle with the writing assignments in the class. I should also clarify that this is not a writing course. I'm not going to be grading you on grammar or spelling. If you struggle with writing a little bit, or maybe English isn't your first language and you feel not very comfortable writing in English, don't worry about that too much. Again, this is not a writing course. It's not my primary goal to be grading you on your grammar and spelling. It is important that you're able to communicate your ideas. So as long as your point, the point that you're making comes through your writing, that's really the thing that matters most. That said, try your best to make your ideas as clear as possible to your readers, people who will be responding to your work in the discussion forums. The more effort that you put into your writing, the easier the discussions will go. So I know I'm blocking a little bit out of this on the slides. You can see the full slides on Canvas, but this is a little bit of the grading rubric for your posts and replies. So your post can be worth up to 30 points. Your replies are each worth up to 10 points, so the total is 50 points. The posts require 350 words on the lesson topics and themes, engaging the readings, and that it's on time before the deadline. So if you meet these minimum requirements, you will get at least 25 points on your posts. For a full 30 points, I'm asking for a little bit more effort than just those minimum requirements. Maybe a little bit more word count, but maybe also a little bit deeper engagement, maybe engaging more than one of the readings, maybe trying to draw out connections across the readings or across different lessons. Anything that shows more research, more attention to the writing process, that goes above and beyond just the minimum requirements will get 30 points to 25 points. And I might give sort of finer gradations of points. There's a late penalty if your work is submitted after the due date. Then there might be a small late penalty. If you're well below the requirements, well below the word count, or you're sort of not very deeply engaged in the material, you might get even lower marks, all the way down to 0. And same thing with the replies. So if you meet the minimum requirements for the replies of 150 words on time, engaging the material, the themes, and your peers, that's 8 points. So 10 points is going above and beyond those minimum requirements. 5 points is less than the minimum requirements if you're writing only 50 words in your replies, and that might be penalized with below requirements. Also, late replies after the due date might also get penalized. So this is the general grading rubric. You can see the rubrics on Canvas for each of the assignments. There will be special grading rubrics for lesson 7 with the ethics, the archive of the Board of Ethical Review, and also for lessons 10 and 11, which is your research project. Notice also that these grading rubrics do not recognize the extended posts that you're going to be required to do for your ethics report. So I'll talk about that in just I'll talk about that now. On any 3 of your posts, I've already said this, let me say it again. On any 3 of your posts, you can choose the lesson assignments that you are most interested in and that you want to do the most extra work on. Sometimes some of the lessons you might find a little bit boring and tedious, and everyone has different tastes here. So I'm not assigning specific lessons to write more on. You pick any 3 lessons, but make sure you do this at some point during the semester. You don't want to do this all in the final 3 weeks of the class. But I'm asking for 3 lessons. You do more work on your posts. So instead of 350 words, I'm asking for these to be about 700 words, or about 7 minutes of video. So this is a deeper writing assignment where you go deeper into the themes, into the readings. Maybe you do some more additional research, where you put more effort into your reflection, where you put more effort into the writing and presentation. All of the effort that you can put into these extended posts will count for additional credit. Now, when you write these extended posts, I'm not going to grade them differently during the regular lesson weeks. They're still at a 30 points for the posts, even if they're your extended posts. But these extended posts will get graded again in the ethics report that's due at the end of the semester. So in lesson 15, I'm asking that you compile your best writing from the semester, all of your extended posts, your research projects, and your research project posts, and any other writing that you think is exemplary and worth archiving. And I want you to compile that all into a new document. I want you to add to that document some reflection on the work that you did this semester. What did you learn? What were your favorite lessons? What did you get out of the semester? And so you're writing a new essay that's going to introduce your ethics report that's going to compile all this other writing that you did this over the semester. So it's important that you have those 700-word essays already done by the time we get to lesson 15 for that final ethics report. So keep that on your radar. I also mentioned, I'll say this again, that there's 2 presentations that you're going to be required to do this semester. Even online students are required to give presentations. One is the lesson presentation, and one is the research project presentation. So for your lesson presentation, I want you to pick one of the lessons. It can't be one of the research project lessons in 10 or 11, and it can't be lesson 7 when we're doing the archive for the Board of Ethical Review. Actually, strike that. It can be for lesson 7 for the Board of Ethical Review. I'm sorry. It just can't be for the research project. But any 2 other lessons, you pick one of those lessons, just one, and I want you to do a presentation on that lesson. You might think of it as doing your own lecture on the material for that lesson. So I have my lecture and slides. You can draw from my lecture and slides, but you can also draw from any of the other material issues that are in the readings that I didn't bring up. You can also bring in additional outside research, things that you know about that relate to that lesson theme and the material in that lesson, but maybe it didn't come up in the lecture, but that you want to highlight for presentation purposes. So pick one of the lessons, do a 10-minute video, record a 10-minute video on your lesson material. You'll probably want to put together a slide deck where you talk over the slides. You can pre-record these lessons, or you can present them live. If you are scheduled for a live on-campus class, you should be doing your presentations live, although you can pre-record them. But online students should record presentations. Students in live classes should have their presentations ready for that live class. If you're in an online section with no live class, I will have during the semester a optional meeting time. And if you have your presentations ready for that meeting time, then I'll present your recordings during that meeting time, and then we'll talk about your presentation. If you're in an online section and you're preparing your presentation for that meeting time, then you will get extra credit for having the presentation ready for that meeting time. Otherwise, the presentations are, if you're an online student and you have the presentation ready for the meeting time, then you'll get extra credit for that meeting time. If you're a student in a live class, you have to have your presentation ready for the meeting time that you scheduled. Otherwise, the presentations are due at the end of the week for the week that you've scheduled your lesson. On Canvas, there's a presentation schedule where you can schedule which lesson that you want to present on. You can also, for these lesson presentations, do it as a group presentation. So if you and one other person pair up, no more than 2 people on a presentation. But if you want to pair up with someone in your section to do the presentation together, you are free to do that. You should both sort of split the work. You probably, if you're doing a group presentation, you might want to go over the 10 minutes a little bit and make sure that each person is actually presenting and talking during those presentations. So select one presentation and then present the material from that lesson that you think is interesting and worth and deserves discussion and attention from the class. try to put some effort into it by drawing connections across the readings or across different lessons. And again, you can do small groups. These lesson presentations are required for all students, and they're worth 150 points, which is like 3 lesson discussion forum assignments. So these lesson presentations are worth quite a lot of your grade, so please make sure you do them. There's also a research project and a presentation associated with your research project. So again, your research project is in lessons 10 and 11, and I'm asking that you choose one historical case. It should be a recent case after 1950s, so no Titanic, no Boston molasses flood. Pick a recent case and give it a full analysis. I want you in lesson 10 to talk about the facts of the case. So do a bunch of research, sort of compile the facts into a digestible form, and your lesson 10 report, your lesson 10 discussion forum posts will be a review of the facts of the case. Your lesson 11 post should be on the same case, but it should engage in an ethical analysis of the case. So once you've presented sort of facts of the case, who was involved, what did they do, what happened, what were the consequences, then give it an ethical analysis. Who should we blame? Who's responsible? Who should we blame? How should we hold them accountable? How can we prevent these disasters from happening again? Right. So single case, but you're doing your analysis of this case over 2 lessons, lessons 10 and 11. And I want this to be a research project, so I want you to do real library research, actually go to the library at NJIT or do some research online. But I want you to demonstrate your research in annotated bibliography. So compile those sources, the scholarly sources that you used, give them an annotation. How are they useful? How did they appear in your work? So for lessons 10 and 11, you have to do your normal posts. These posts are going to be longer posts, the same length as one of the extended posts. These are 700 word. 700 word is about 2 or 2.5 pages of typed double-spaced material. And for each lesson, for lesson 10 and 11, I want you to do 700 word essays. So 1,400 words for the entire project. And these posts are also worth twice as much as normal, 100 points. In addition to the 100 points on the posts and replies, you also have the bibliography. And the bibliography should be 4 scholarly sources with full citations and your annotations. So that's the research project. It kind of functions as a midterm, but it's yeah, it kind of functions as a midterm. It's a big mid-semester project. There's not going to be any final project. The ethics report is your final project. But I'm also asking that you do a research presentation on your research project. The research presentations should be fairly short, about 5 minutes. You can use slides if you want, but it's not necessary. Maybe a picture would help, just to visualize the case that you're talking about. And the point of these research presentations is just to present your case quickly so that students can be exposed to these cases, exposed to a lot of these cases. You're not going to be able to go over all of the details of your report in these 5 minutes, but just give the highlights. What happened? What went wrong? What is your ethical analysis? How do we prevent these cases from happening in the future? Your research presentation is due at the end of week 11, but if you get those presentations in by the live class sessions, then online students will get extra credit for those presentations, and I'll be presenting those during those live class sessions. All right, so those are all the assignments in class. Just summarizing that and putting it all together. Your typical lesson has 30 points for your posts and 20 points for 2 replies, 10 points each. So 50 points for your typical lesson. This changes for lessons 10 and 11. Your posts are worth twice as much, 60 points. You still have 2 replies that are worth the same, but then you also have this annotated bibliography worth 20 points. So your lesson 10 and 11 points, 10 and 11 projects are worth 100 points each. So that's 200 points for your research project plus 600 points for the other discussion sections. And then your 2 presentations, the 150-point lesson presentation plus the 50-point research presentation, together is 200 points. That's 1,000 points. I also want you to do introductions. So at the very start of the semester, probably when you're watching this video, make sure you set your Canvas avatar and that you introduce yourself in the discussion forums. There's an introduction discussion thread on Canvas where you can introduce yourself. Also, by your introduction, you should also sign up for your presentations on the presentation schedule on Canvas. So getting all of that done gives you 20 points in the first week of class. And then there's the ethics report, which is worth 100 points at the very end of class. So all in total, that's 1,120 points total in class. This does not include any extra credit assignments. Extra credit will go over that minimum score. But just on this base score, here's the grading scale. So 90% of this will earn you an A, 85% will earn you a B, plus 80% or greater will earn you a B, and so on. So if you get over 1,005 points, you've earned an A. A couple things about this. One thing is I have a 5-point tolerance when calculating final grades. So if you are within 5 points of a grade threshold, for instance, if you scored 1,000 points over the semester, the lowest A is 1,005 points. I'll go ahead and bump you those 5 points. You only get 5 points for that bump, but that's calculated at the end of the semester. Another thing I just want to point out here is that the total number of points in the class is 1,120 points, but you will get an A, and there's no A+. So you'll get an A if you get over 1,005 points, and because of that buffer, really over 1,000 points. Which means that, in theory, you can lose 120 points in class and still get an A. There's no official policy in class that you can skip one assignment. You are required to do all the assignments. But if you did miss an assignment, say, on a typical lesson, say you missed one of the lesson assignments and you lost 50 points, you're still going to be in A range, assuming that you do well on all your other assignments. So you might think of this as a kind of flexibility in your grade. You have 120 points or so of flexibility, which means that if you lose a couple of points on some assignments, it's not the biggest deal. Even if you end up missing one of the assignments, if you do all the other work and you're getting good grades on all the other assignments, you might still be in A range. So just a note on that grading policy. Okay, so there's also a late policy, and you saw it when we were talking about the rubrics earlier. And again, you can see the slides without my head covering it up on Canvas. But if you submit a post before the deadline, then you're eligible for full credit. But if you submit a post after the deadline, there you have 1 week. So the policy is that after the deadline, you have 1 week to turn in material late. If you turn in material during this late period, then there's a small penalty. You have a maximum of 20 out of 30 points on your posts, or 5 out of 10 points on your replies. And these are due until the next lesson due date. So lesson 2 is due on a Friday. You have until, if you miss that deadline, you have until the next Friday to turn in your lesson 2 assignment with this small late penalty. And you only have 1 week. After that 1 week late penalty period, assignments are no longer eligible for submission. You cannot submit an assignment after the one week late penalty period. On the late penalty, I should say that there's a 30-minute grace period on Canvas. So if you turn in, so it's 11:59 on Friday night. If you turn it in at 12:30 on Saturday morning, I'm not going to penalize you as late. But make sure you get it in by 12:30. If it's much after that, if you're turning it in at like 8 a.m. on Saturday morning, that's late. That's after the deadline. So about a 30-minute grace period. If it's 35 minutes, maybe that's okay also, but don't push that. So try to get your material in on time. If it's after that grace period, then the late penalties start accumulating. Okay. So that's the late policy for assignments that are just turned in late without any explanation. However, I do grant extensions and exceptions to the late policy. One way you might get an exception to the late policy is if there's something coming up in the future that you know is coming up that you have scheduled on your calendar. If you tell me in advance of a due date, then I will give you an extension on that assignment. You must ask me before 48 hours of a deadline. So if the assignment's due on Friday night, don't ask me Friday afternoon for an extension because I won't give it to you. You have to ask me by Wednesday night for an extension. And if this is something that's coming up in the future, something like you're going to a conference or there's some other academic thing, if you're an athlete and there's an away game and you know you're not going to be around to submit that assignment, just let me know your schedule and I will let you submit it afterwards. Some students in class have National Guard duties. I've had students who have who were pregnant and have due dates during the semester, and those are sort of things that we can anticipate in advance and coordinate. And just ask me for an extension ahead of time, and I will give you that extension. But of course, life doesn't always happen on a schedule, and sometimes things come up that you can't plan for, you don't know ahead of time. So these are what I'm calling the legitimate emergencies, things like hospital emergencies, funerals, a death in the family, etc. So these are things that are unexpected. In these situations, what I ask students to do is to contact the Dean of Students' office using this student concern form that you can find on the syllabus. This student concern form, it's not to get you in trouble, it's just to let the dean know, the Dean of Students know that there's a situation that needs to be addressed. If, for instance, you get sick and have to go to the hospital for a week, letting the dean know lets the Dean of Students offer the support that NJIT has. The Dean of Students is equipped to address these sort of issues and give you proper student support as a student. For instance, one of the things the Dean of Students can do is coordinate among all of your instructors. So instead of having to talk to each one of your instructors individually about your situation, you can contact the Dean of Students, and the Dean of Students will coordinate with all of your professors. Sometimes you can't get in contact with the Dean of Students for whatever reason, and in those situations, just get in contact with me and we'll try to work something out. But when the Dean of Students contacts me about some excuse, that's also no further questions asked. You don't have to tell me anything about your situation. If you don't want, when I hear from the Dean of Students, no questions asked, and I will extend those late penalties, and we can talk about how to coordinate and make up for the work that you lost, that you missed. Let me say this one more time. I want to be as flexible as possible with students. I've tried to be flexible in the past, but especially during pandemic situations, especially when situations so difficult for all sorts of reasons, I want to be as flexible as possible. Really, if you have any issue, if you're just struggling with the work and you just need a break for whatever issue, let me know, talk to me, and we'll work something out. Another thing to say is that if there are live classes, I will be recording those live classes and putting them online so you won't miss a class. Where possible, I will broadcast these classes on WebEx so you can watch from home. If you're sick for whatever reason, don't come to class. Don't expose others to potential illness. Don't worry about the attendance policies. If you're sick, I will make as much opportunities available to make the course content available to students who don't come to class. And to help coordinate with students afterwards to make up missing assignments. So seriously, come talk to me about any issues that you're having. Okay. Citation policy. There will be another video on Canvas where I go over the plagiarism and citation policy in complete detail. But let me just say briefly here, the point of the citation policy is to give credit to work that is not your own, to acknowledge and explicitly credit people whose work that you're using in your assignments. So any work that is not your own must be clearly marked as coming from some other source. That means putting quotes in quotation marks and affixing references. So if you're taking direct quotes from other sources, make sure that you put them in direct quotes and that you're citing the author and the source that you're getting that work from. If you're just using a source but you're not quoting directly, but maybe you read the Wikipedia page in order to help orient you on the material, and then when you wrote it up, you weren't using any of the Wikipedia material, but it was part of your research and preparation for your assignment. That kind of material, just put a link at the end of your post. Sources used the Wikipedia link. Even if you don't quote it anywhere in the body of your text, just let me know the sources that you're using. It helps me keep track of the kind of research that my students are doing. And it helps your readers know where you're getting your information. If you are using a material that I've made available in the readings and lesson material and the lecture, usually it's pretty clear that you're referring to material that's in the reading. So for instance, in lesson 12, we read a paper from Alan Turing. So in this assignment, perhaps you want to quote from Turing. Turing said that the question, "Can machines think?" was too meaningless to the discussion. Right. So here I'm attributing it to Turing, making it clear that Turing said this, putting in quotes the things that Turing said, and then I'm citing it by citing the author's name and the page number. And the page number where I got this. So if it's material that I've made available, this is all you really need, just the author's name and the page number. I and all the other students in class know the materials that's made available for the lesson, so if you just refer to the author's name and the page number, it's going to be easy for us to get to track down that source. Any other material that you're using, if you did research on your own, if you're using a book that you have, if you're using any outside source that was not part of the material that I made available in class, again, that's fine. It's encouraged for you to do outside research and bring more information into the class, but any outside material should be properly cited. At the very least, put a link down at the bottom of your post and reference the author, but a full citation requires, at the very least, the author's name, the year that the piece was published, the title of the piece, and where the piece was published. Right, so this is the complete citation. Again, you only need a partial citation for material that I've already made available, but any other material should be given a complete citation. APA style is where you have the author first, then the year in parentheses. I don't really care about the style of the citations. Any style, as long as you're consistent in your work, any style that you find helpful and that points your readers into the right direction to track down the sources will be useful. In the annotated bibliography for your research project, you will have to give full citations. And again, I'm asking for APA style, but you can use any style that you find useful as long as you're consistent. But the point is to credit work that is not your own. So if you fail to give these kinds of citations, this might constitute plagiarism, and so this is the place to talk about the plagiarism policy. So plagiarism policy is not just my personal policy. There's a policy at NJIT. It's really important for NJIT to keep the integrity of these courses, the integrity of the education, the standard of education high. It's because the standard of education is high that all of your degrees will be valuable. When this standard falls, it hurts everyone who goes through the school. So for NJIT, the Student Code of Conduct defines plagiarism as attempting to use any work that's not your own, that was prepared by another material, and submitting it without appropriate citation or credit. Copying from any source without quotations or appropriate documentation. Copying from any source and altering the words to avoid exact quotation can also count as plagiarism. Right? So sometimes students do this. This is actually fairly common. Well, they will copy a paragraph from Wikipedia, but they'll change out all the big words for synonyms for words that mean the same thing but are slightly different words. But that way, they think that they're avoiding the plagiarism detection. Often, it's not the case that you avoid the plagiarism detection. Often, it's very easy to spot that this is an example of plagiarism, and then you would lose credit for that assignment. So I have a link on the syllabus, also linked in these slides, to a website that goes through how to legitimately paraphrase and what an illegitimate paraphrase looks like. And I'm going to go through this stuff in the plagiarism video on Canvas. Also remember, if you can also self-plagiarize. If you've taken this course before but didn't complete it for whatever reason, I'm asking you that you do the assignments again, start the assignments fresh. Don't just copy and paste from your old assignments. For one thing, this will come up in the plagiarism section as plagiarism, and this might count as plagiarism. If you don't want to do the assignments again and you just copy from your old work, I won't apply the full plagiarism penalty, but I'm going to count that as low effort, and low effort gets 20 out of 30 points. So just copying from your old work from previous semesters will only get 20 out of 30 points. If you want full credit on your assignments, then you need to do these assignments from scratch. If you've taken the course before, you can talk about the same material, you can use the same case study for your research project, but you should be writing the assignments from scratch. Okay. So if I determine that your assignment constitutes plagiarism, I will give you lose credit for that assignment. You don't get to make that credit up. You don't get to redo an assignment that you lost credit for plagiarism. That first time that I find plagiarism in your work, you will lose credit for that assignment, and you'll get a warning from me that this constitutes plagiarism, that this violates the plagiarism policy, and this is why you're getting 0. Again, you cannot make those points up. The other penalty for first offense plagiarism is that you lose all access to extra credit for the semester. So there's lots of extra credit opportunities. Extra credit opportunities are important for some students to make sure that they stay over the threshold to an A or a B+. But if you are caught plagiarizing at any point during the semester, you lose all extra credit opportunities. You don't get any extra credit opportunities. And what ends up happening from that is that most students who are found plagiarizing even once will drop a full letter grade. It's really hard to get an A in this class after you've been found plagiarizing even once. So that's first penalty for plagiarism, and hopefully that's the only penalty for plagiarism, but if there are students who continue to plagiarize after being given this warning, or who are submitting work that constitutes egregious cases of plagiarism, like whole paragraphs copied out of Wikipedia and so on, those egregious cases will be forwarded to the Dean of Students with a recommendation to fail the class. I do not tolerate plagiarism in my ethics class, especially in an ethics class. I would feel very bad about the class if I was letting students copy and cheat in class and get a good grade. I know students have gotten through class with plagiarism in the past, but it's become an increasingly big problem over the last few semesters, so I'm going to be doing extra work this semester to make sure that plagiarism is not a problem. Please don't plagiarize in my ethics class. I will not hesitate to fail students who plagiarize in this class. Okay, so I mentioned extra credit. There are a couple of extra credit essays on Canvas that you can write for 15 points each, I guess. There's also a regular peer review assignment. So sometimes students get a little bit confused about this, and I'll talk about peer review on the next slide. But for each lesson, you can do a peer review and get a little bit of extra credit. I also collect engineering ethics memes if you submit memes on Canvas. I will get extra credit. You will also get credit, this is not on the slide, and I apologize for that, but there's also extra credit for students who are online only, but submit their presentations in time to be presented during the live class sessions in the semester. So keep a lookout for that, online only students. These extra credit points, with those presentation extra credit points, it's going to be slightly more than 66 points, but between 5 and 10% of the whole grade you can get through extra credit. One of those extra credit assignments, as I mentioned, was the peer reviews. So the peer reviews are different from the replies. So I want to make this very clear. You have a reply an assignment where you write posts and then you reply to other students' posts. The replies are supposed to engage the content material, the lesson material, the content for that lesson, and supposed to engage the work of other students. And that's a regular assignment. Those are worth 20 points. You also will be assigned a peer review assignment, and this is after the replies are due. So after the due date for the replies on Canvas, Canvas will distribute peer review assignments. These are automatically redistributed to all the students who completed the assignment. They are not anonymous, so the student who you're grading will see your grades and see your comments. And the point of the peer review is not for discussion on the topic. The point of the peer review is to provide feedback and grade assessment from peers. It's basically peer grading. So what will happen in the peer review is that you'll be given the rubric, the same rubric that I use to grade, and your assignment is to grade the assignment based on that rubric. There are a couple of different purposes for the peer review assignment. One is to make you more familiar with the grading process, make you more familiar with how the grading rubric works. It is that if you're grading other students' assignments, then you have a better idea of how the grading rubric works, and then maybe you can write better assignments yourself to fit that grading rubric. It's also just another way for engaging your peers. This time not on their on the content and lesson material, but this time on their writing. So if you're assigned a peer review for a student who's obviously put a lot of effort into their writing, you might give them a hey, good job on the writing in the peer review. You don't have to write a lot for these peer review things. If you just fill out the rubric, that's plenty. Another thing that these peer reviews do is they give a double check on my own grading practices. So the peer review grades don't actually count for your grade, but if the peer review grade and my grades are really divergent, if the peer review grade is very different from the grade that I'm giving, this might be a reason to go back and look again at the grades, and maybe the peer reviews were off, or maybe my own grading practices were off, but it's sort of a double check. So this is just another avenue for feedback, both between students and between me and between students and the instructor. Again, these peer reviews are optional. You don't have to complete them if you don't want to, but everyone you complete will get extra credit. These peer reviews come available after the lesson assignments are due, after the replies are due on Tuesdays. Okay, that's it for the big picture course policies review. Hopefully you have a better understanding of how the class works. Get engaged on Canvas now and start engaging with lesson assignments. If you have any questions, let me know by email or by Discord. There will be, again, another video on Canvas where I go through the plagiarism policy in a little bit more detail. But otherwise, hopefully you have a good start for the course. Good luck with your assignments this semester, and I'll see you on campus. Be good to yourself and take care of each other.